Several days ago, when I saw in the news that Singaporean Prime Minister Lawrence Wong was on a commercial flight in economy class, I was deeply shocked. I don't know why Singapore, a tiny country, always appears in various news pages of Chinese media and is sought after. In fact, the Chinese do not necessarily want freedom and democracy. As long as there is a clean and efficient government like Singapore, no one will complain. Previously, an Indian netizen left a message saying that India needs to learn from China, otherwise it will be difficult to achieve modernization. My reply to him is, it is better to learn directly from Singapore than from China. China has only learned half of Singapore's advantages and solved a lot of practical problems. I also suggest that Indians can even be simpler and rent Lee Hsien Loong from Singapore for a large sum of money to let him lead India's reform and opening up. Anyway, Mr. Lee is now a senior minister and he has a lot of spare time. Speaking of Lee Hsien Loong, he came to visit China. The 30th anniversary of the establishment of the Suzhou Industrial Park, a joint venture between Singapore and China, was celebrated by China and Singapore. Mr. Lee Hsien Loong was warmly received by local Chinese officials. He also visited Beijing and met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. It can be said that China received Lee Hsien Loong completely with the specifications of a head of top state. China has arranged a large number of activities from the government to the private sector. Accompanied by Lei Jun, he visited Xiaomi's electric car factory and toured Beijing. Lee Hsien Loong's father, Mr. Kuan Yew, is the founding father of Singapore. He has close relations with Chinese leaders Deng Xiaoping and Jiang Zemin. He has put forward countless valuable opinions during China's reform and opening up. He also advocated cooperation with Suzhou to build an industrial park. Now Mr. Lee Hsien Loong's visit to China and return to Suzhou Industrial Park can be regarded as a journey of remembrance for his father. After 30 years of development, not only has Suzhou become the most economically powerful prefecture-level administrative region in Jiangsu Province, but Jiangsu Province has also crossed the threshold of developed economies, with a per capita GDP exceeding $21,000, and an economic aggregate catching up with South Korea, initially realizing modernization. In addition to Suzhou, Shenzhen City in Guangdong Province also uses Singapore as a template instead of learning from Hong Kong, which is separated by a river. Today, Shenzhen's economic aggregate has surpassed Hong Kong and has become China's third largest city. Shenzhen is also China's most innovative city. I mentioned in the previous video that China's current fourth and fifth-tier cities are still being planned and constructed based on Singapore as a template. The main concept is order, cleanliness, greening, and sustainable development. My hometown, as a fifth-tier city, also has the same modern appearance as big cities. As a small country with limited land area, Singapore cooperates with foreign countries to build overseas industries such as Suzhou Industrial Park, which is an effective means to make full use of state-owned assets and disperse economic risks. Although China has developed into a world factory and an economic power, it cannot be as flexible as Singapore. It is a very good strategy to let Singaporeans innovate and China learn from experience through cooperation. Just like maintaining Hong Kong's status as an independent economy and serving as a pilot city for financial innovation. The two countries each get what they need, and the prospects for cooperation are broad. Regarding Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, some people previously disdained him in the comment area, thinking that he was far from Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. I am also a loyal fan of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, but to be fair, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong's glory does not need to rely on his father. Let me give you a simple example. Singapore maintains a deep cooperative relationship with China while maintaining an equal and dignified diplomacy with the United States. Singapore has always been outspoken. It will not take sides in the conflict between China and the United States and opposes trade protectionism. However, the Singapore Air Force is still equipped with F-35 fighter jets that only the closest allies of the United States can get. At the same time, The leaders of the Taiwanese government define themselves as the watchdog of the United States, being played by American congressmen and celebrating a phone call with the U.S. president. And they can only buy secondhand weapons that the Americans have eliminated at high prices, and they have to face huge military pressure from the mainland. Let's not talk about Singapore's economic achievements during Mr. Lee Hsien Loong's leadership as the brain of ASEAN, and the diplomatic achievements of promoting RCEP. Just balancing Sino-US relations is worth learning from leaders of many countries. So I suggest to Indian netizens that you don't learn from China either. China is huge, complex, and elusive. You can rent Mr. Lee Hsien Loong for a lot of money, pay a 50% deposit first, and start reforms immediately. 20 years later, you just wait for the acceptance of the results and pay the balance.